From the time you were a kid, you are sold this heavily sanitized story about growing up.
Right, definitely.
You hustle, you play by the rules, and eventually you graduate into this promised land called the American dream. But what happens when you finally get there and realize the adult world you've been striving for is really just a high-stakes, deeply toxic version of high school?
It's a terrifying realization for anyone. I mean, the lockers and the cafeterias might be gone, but the social currency, the desperation to fit in, and the sheer terror of humiliation, those underlying mechanics are all still running the show.
Yeah, totally.
The only difference is the scale.
Yeah.
Now, the consequences of a misstep don't just get you grounded. They can entirely dismantle your life.
Exactly. And that is the exact illusion we are tearing into today.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at Season 3, Episode 2 of Euphoria, titled America, My Dream.
Which dropped on April 19, 2026. Right. And because you, our audience, know this show inside and out, we aren't going to just recap the plot. Instead, we are synthesizing a stack of sources to figure out what is driving the massive character shifts and, honestly, the explosive audience backlash surrounding this hour of television.
Oh, the backlash is real.
It is wild. So we are pulling from a really vibrant mix of Reddit Live and post-episode discussion threads, a razor-sharp critical review from the AV Club, and an impassioned YouTube breakdown from the channel Pay or Wait.
Our mission today is to unpack how this episode systematically shatters the illusion of adulthood for its characters. But we also have to look beyond the screen. Right?
Yeah, the meta conversation.
Exactly. The meta conversation is almost eclipsing the story itself. We'll be exploring the highly polarized audience reactions to the show's aesthetic, its controversial writing choices, and how a raw, real-life tragedy bled directly into the performances.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with the economics of image. Right out of the gate, the AV Club review focuses heavily on how capitalism and the internet age have completely distorted these characters' ambitions.
Totally.
Yeah, I was reading their take on Maddie, who is out in Hollywood working as an assistant to a talent manager. And initially I just saw her as trying to play the corporate game. But the AV Club pointed out something I completely missed about the macroeconomic context. Can you break down what's really going on there?
Yeah, so the AV Club astutely noted that the show is explicitly acknowledging the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
Hattie isn't just out there trying to be this glamorous girl boss just for her ego.
Right.
She is actually financially supporting her mother, whose salon was permanently shuttered during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it totally recontextualizes her ambition. It shifts her entire arc from a quest for glamour to a desperate bid for survival.
So it's not just about buying designer bags anymore. It's literally about keeping the lights on. And I saw the YouTuber from Pay or Wait give a really compelling breakdown of Maddie's workplace dynamics. She pointed out that Maddie is trying so hard to buy into the traditional hustle answering phones, keeping her head down, basically trying to prove she isn't an entitled Gen Z stereotype.
Yeah, but she's simultaneously witnessing the absurd contradictions of that exact system.
Exactly.
I mean, the contradiction is glaring when she discovers a young woman named Caitlin, someone her boss actually fired, who is now making $700,000 a month on OnlyFans.
$700,000 a month.
Literally, just by showing your feet.
While Maddie is sitting there making, what, $800 a week, it has to make her feel like the traditional path is a total scam.
Absolutely.
But I think my favorite detail came from the Reddit sleuths. They zeroed in on how Maddie handles this insecurity when she meets up with Cassie. They notice Maddie intentionally parks her car completely out of sight.
Oh yeah, that was brilliant.
She purposely waits for Cassie to arrive first, just so she can stride in late, pretending to be on the super important business call. Why go through all that theatrical effort?
It is pure projection.
Yeah.
Maddie is selling the illusion that she has made it because she absolutely refuses to let Cassie see her struggle. She's manufacturing this aura of success to mask her economic vulnerability.
Right.
And that creates a tragic contrast with Cassie herself. If Maddie is attempting to maintain a sleek corporate facade to hide her desperation, Cassie is basically having a digital meltdown in broad daylight.
It is honestly so uncomfortable to watch. We all know Cassie has always sought validation, but this is a whole new level. She's monetizing her image by posing for these bizarre, humiliating photos.
The adult baby one.
Yes, dressing up as an adult baby, pouring ice cream all over herself, and having her housekeeper, Juana, snap the photos in her front yard.
In the front yard.
The Reddit threads were absolutely merciless, with the consensus being that Cassie has just been reduced to a, quote, money-hungry airhead. But looking at the sources, calling her an airhead kind of misses the point,
I
right?
think so, yeah.
To me, it feels like she's trapped in a digital high school cafeteria where the only currency she has left to buy any kind of attention is her own humiliation.
That is a very apt way to look at it.
Yeah.
Director Sam Levinson makes a deliberate cinematic choice during these scenes that the AV Club spent a lot of time unpacking. They noted that Marilyn Monroe's iconic song, I Want to Be Loved by You, plays over Cassie's photo shoots.
Oh, right. Marilyn Monroe, the ultimate symbol of a woman whose image was endlessly consumed and picked over by the public.
Precisely. So the only question the AV Club raises is, are we watching a profound commentary on Cassie finally taking control of her body and her narrative by monetizing these images on her own terms? Or is the show itself simply exploiting the actress, Sydney Sweeney, for the male gaze under the thin guise of empowerment?
And the discourse on that is incredibly divided. Some fans feel it's this brilliant critique of the creator economy, while others just feel it's gratuitous. But this obsession with maintaining an image at all costs doesn't just stop with Cassie and Maddie.
No, definitely not.
We have to look at how this pressure cooker affects Nate. He is projecting the image of a wildly successful real estate developer, throwing these lavish barbecues for investors. But behind closed doors, he is drowning. He owes $550,000, which is about to jump to 600 Kato, an investor named Naz.
He is financially ruined. And then Cassie, who has absolutely no filter and no sense of self-preservation, casually brings up her OnlyFans hustle in front of his wealthy friends.
Oh, it was so tense.
She inadvertently threatens the one thing Nate cares about above all else, his meticulously crafted image of perfection and dominance.
But his reaction is what broke the internet, because instead of going scorched earth, Nate caves. To stop her from exposing his financial ruin in front of his friends, he agrees to buy Cassie $50,000 in wedding florals.
Yeah, a massive floral budget.
And I have to push back on this writing choice because the Reddit community was up in arms. The consensus was, wait, the old Nate would have blackmailed her? He would have destroyed her life to protect his secret? Why is this new Nate caving to a floral budget? Who lobotomized him?
It is a jarring shift in his character on the surface. But if we dig into the psychological profiling that some of the deeper dive analysts have done, it actually makes a twisted sort of sense.
Really? How so?
Yeah. You have to consider Nate's upbringing. He grew up in a household where his father, Cal, hid massive destructive secrets beneath a rigid veneer of suburban perfection. Nate is so terrified of being exposed as a fraud, of losing his alpha status in front of his investors, that he'd rather take on an absurd floral debt than risk an immediate public humiliation.
Wow. Okay, so his entire identity is tied to being the provider, the success story. And Cassie just stumbled onto the one button that completely paralyzes him.
Exactly. Maddie, Cassie, and Nate are all operating in the daylight, desperately trying to sell this glossy, digital illusion of the American dream. But the mechanisms they're using to maintain those illusions are incredibly fragile.
Which transitions us perfectly to the other side of this world. Because while they are dealing with the psychological weight of capitalism, the literal grim underbelly of this dream is covered in dirt and danger over in Rue's storyline. I mean, Maddie and Nate are hiding debts. In OnlyFans accounts, Rue is hiding bodies.
The contrast in the stakes is staggering.
Yeah.
We move from the manicured lawns of Hollywood to a much darker systemic level of exploitation.
Let's look at Rue's new reality. She has this new job managing a strip club called the Silver Slipper for a guy named Alamo. And she tells Jules she's California sober, meaning she's off the hard stuff, just drinking and smoking weed.
Right.
She genuinely seems to believe she's finally a functional adult with a real management job. But the viewers quickly find out her real job involves covering up fentanyl overdose deaths for Alamo.
The show leans really heavily into its crime thriller elements here. Rue is tasked with rolling up a sex worker named Tish, who overdosed on fentanyl in a rug. And this is where the Reddit viewers are incredibly eagle-eyed.
They catch everything.
They really do. They noticed a specific detail during this grim cleanup. When Rue was folding up that carpet, a metal key fell out of Tish's belongings onto the floor, and Rue left it behind.
And in a show directed by Sam Levinson, a lingering shot on a dropped key is never an accident. It's a ticking time bomb. But what's fascinating is how the show juxtaposes this sheer terror with bizarre, almost absurd comic relief back at Nate's house. You remember Juana, the housekeeper?
Oh, yeah.
The one taking Cassie's photos. She starts asking Nate all these hyper-specific questions about the barbecue leftovers, like, should I keep the vegetables and the pigs in a blanket, and what about the hot dogs?
The Reddit users were having a field day with that scene. They pointed out that she's essentially rage-baiting him. She knows way too much about his chaotic life and absolutely hates her job, so she's weaponizing these mundane questions just to annoy him.
But what I love about that scene is how the mention of pigs perfectly foreshadows the actual terrifying pig in Rue's storyline.
Oh, the pig, yeah.
Because Tish's death was caused by a bad batch of drugs from Lori, the terrifying drug lord from previous seasons. Alamo demands reparations. And when Lori refuses, Alamo doesn't just send a threat. He sends a literal giant pig named Lieutenant Dan to poop all over Lori's pristine house.
It is grotesque and completely visceral. It's a calculated act of disrespect that officially sets off a dangerous underworld feud between these two syndicates.
But the darkest part of this entire underbelly plot revolves around a new character named Angel, played brilliantly by Priscilla Delgado. Angel was close to Tish and is completely spiraling out of control after her death.
Right.
So Rue goes to Alamo, and Alamo offers to pay for Angel to go to a rehab facility. Rue actually drops Angel off, thinking she's executing this successful managerial intervention. But the YouTube breakdown and the Reddit threads caught all the horrifying visual clues that Rue completely missed.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the visual storytelling here is devastating. Think about the cues the audience sees, but Rue ignores. There is zero intake paperwork for Angel to sign.
Not at all.
The hallways are dark, dilapidated, and ominous. Nothing like a sterile or supportive medical facility. The staff member receiving Angel has visibly dirty fingernails, and the most chilling detail. The second Rue drives away, an unmarked ambulance immediately pulls up to the building.
Oh, it is terrifying. It is heavily implied that this is not a rehab at all. It is a human trafficking front. And I have to ask about the genre shift here. Are we watching Euphoria or a bizarre Coen Brothers movie?
It really feels like it.
Rue is completely oblivious to the trafficking happening literally right in front of her. Is she willfully ignorant because she finally feels important in her job, or is her California sober brain just completely fried and unable to process reality?
It's likely a tragic combination of both. You have to remember, Rue is fundamentally an addict. And right now she has simply substituted her addiction to narcotics with an addiction to the feeling of being capable. Alamo explicitly tells people that his business is selling people, not just drugs. He does not hide his nature.
But Rue needs to believe she is functioning.
She is so desperate to believe she is a successful manager living her own version of the American dream that she entirely compartmentalizes the systemic evil she is facilitating. She cannot afford to see the truth, because seeing the truth would mean admitting she's still entirely out of control.
Wow. And this dark, grueling storytelling isn't just shocking the characters within the show, it is actively alienating parts of the audience. Which brings us to the meta conversation, because the way this narrative is being delivered has sparked some massive real-world controversies.
Definitely.
The discourse online is arguably louder than the conversation about the plot itself.
The audience is aggressively pushing back on the creator's artistic choices. We're seeing a profound disconnect between what the showrunner is producing and what the core fan base expects from this universe.
Now, it's important we look objectively at what the fan base is saying here. We are seeing intense outrage in the Reddit threads and YouTube reviews regarding Sam Levinson's writing. A lot of fans are openly calling the script a Tarantino knockoff. But what does that actually mean in the context of Euphoria?
Well, when fans call it a Tarantino knockoff, they are referring to a heavy reliance on hyper-stylized violence, non-linear aggressive dialogue, and the gratuitous use of shock value that feels disconnected from genuine character development.
Right.
The criticism is that the script is trying so hard to be edgy and cinematic that it loses the emotional groundedness that made the earlier seasons resonate.
And we are just reporting on what the discourse is saying here, but the breaking point for a lot of viewers involved a highly charged scene with the new character, Angel. So Angel, who is a non-black character, gets into a physical altercation, throws a shoe, and repeatedly uses racial slurs, specifically the N-word.
Yes.
And if the audience wasn't already reeling from that, the script has Alamo, a black man, react by claiming that being called a pig is somehow worse and more offensive than being called the N-word.
The reaction to this specific dialogue exchange was overwhelmingly negative. Reviewers like the host of Pay or Wait expressed profound confusion and disgust, explicitly stating they had to pause the episode to process the sheer recklessness of the writing.
Wow.
The audience feels this dialogue doesn't serve the story. It merely exists to provoke outrage. And again, we're just outlining the audience's reaction here, but the backlash was immense.
Completely. And the frustration extends well beyond the dialogue into the show's core aesthetics. For the first 2 seasons, Liebranth's musical score was essentially the emotional heartbeat of Euphoria. It guided the audience through the trauma. Now, that iconic soundscape is missing, replaced by a totally different sonic environment, and fans are actively mourning that loss.
The absence of that score fundamentally changes how the audience processes the visuals. And speaking of visuals, there is intense criticism regarding the treatment of Chloe Cherry's character, Faye.
Oh, I saw a lot of chatter about this on Reddit. The audience feels the show is crossing a major line.
They feel it has moved from an edgy, boundary-pushing depiction of sexuality into sleazy, manipulative exploitation. The critique is that the director is essentially weaponizing Chloe Cherry's real-life background in the adult film industry for cheap voyeurism, rather than treating her character with the narrative respect she deserves.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Amidst all this intense anger directed at the creator for being pretentious, reckless, or exploitative, there is a simultaneous, overwhelming outpouring of pure empathy for the actor Eric Dane, who plays Nate's father, Cal.
The contrast is truly breathtaking to observe.
Yeah. I mean, the audience is holding these two completely opposing emotional states at the exact same time.
Because Eric Dane, in real life, is battling ALS. And the audience, particularly viewers who work in healthcare and recognize the signs, notice that his real-life symptoms, the physical manifestations of motor decline, were visibly present on screen.
His physical vulnerability was impossible to ignore.
It made his performance utterly gut-wrenching. The disease gradually strips away a person's physical control, and watching an actor channel that real-life physical battle into a character who has always been so obsessed with control and dominance is profound.
It is heartbreaking, and the script leans into it in a fascinating way. Cal has this incredible piece of dialogue where he is defending his past double life, all the lies, the affairs, the destruction he caused his family. And he just shrugs and says he wasn't gay, he was just a hedonist.
Yeah, that line.
He is entirely unrepentant, yet he physically appears so frail and vulnerable.
Which creates an incredibly jarring viewing experience. You have an audience that is simultaneously tearing the show apart, demanding strict moral accountability from the writer, while collectively mourning and praising a raw, visceral performance from an actor who is playing a character famous for having absolute zero moral compass.
It's a massive paradox. The audience wants the creator to be ethically pure, while obsessively tuning in to watch a show about people who are entirely ethically bankrupt. It really highlights how complex our relationship is with the media we consume. So, with all of this swirling around, the chaotic storylines, the lost aesthetics, the terrifying crime syndicates, and the intense audience polarization, what is the ultimate emotional core of America, My Dream as we leave these characters?
To find the emotional core, we have to look at the very final scene of the episode. It all distills down to Rue going to visit Jules. The visual contrast in that reunion tells the entire story before a single line of dialogue is spoken.
Paint the picture for us. What are we seeing in that moment?
We see Jules living in this immaculate, sterile, high-rise penthouse, which is being paid for by an older sugar daddy.
Yeah.
She's wearing a massive 50-inch wig, clutching a designer Balenciaga bag. She is the absolute picture of manufactured, high-end adult luxury.
Right.
And Rue shows up at her door. Rue is wearing her late father's baggy burgundy hoodie, the exact same armor she wore as a grieving teenager in season 1. She is desperately looking for a genuine grounding connection.
And it is so incredibly sad to watch. Jules looks at her and says, you can't just show up and expect everything to be the same. But that is exactly what Rue wants. She wants the safety of the past.
Because underneath all the bravado, both of these characters, and really all the characters we've discussed, are just cosplaying as successful adults.
Yeah.
Maddie is cosplaying corporate success. Cassie is cosplaying an empowered internet celebrity. Nate is cosplaying a stable alpha provider. Jules is cosplaying a kept woman of luxury. But emotionally, they are all completely stunted.
They're frozen in time?
They're entirely stuck in the trauma of their past. And honestly, this raises an important question for you listening. We have all had those moments where we realize the adult world we were promised is just a messy, high-stakes version of our teenage years. How do you navigate a system that actively profits off your deepest insecurities?
It makes you wonder if the entire concept of the American dream they are chasing is just a psychological trap designed to keep them exhausted. Which leaves us with this final thought. If the American dream is just an illusion we sell to ourselves to keep running on the hamster wheel of capitalism and social media, Maybe the true tragedy of Euphoria isn't the character's addiction to fentanyl or to validation or to attention. Maybe the ultimate, most destructive addiction is nostalgia.
Wow. Oh.
It is the addiction to the idea of who we were supposed to become when we finally grew up. But what happens when you finally wake up from that dream, look around at the theatrical sets of your life, and realize the currency you've been using to buy happiness is completely expired? The only way to actually win is to stop playing the game entirely.